Hi, everybody. Welcome to Pet Hub's Facebook Live. I'm super excited to see everybody here today. And unlike most of our Facebook Lives, which are all focused on the puppies and the dogs and everything like that, today we're going to talk about the cats. Yay! This is maybe the only time that Tormund makes an appearance on this episode, but I've got my kitty crack here, so we can maybe keep him around. But I'm really excited about our guest today. We're going to be talking about cats and lost pet prevention. And my guests today are Dr. Marci Koski and Kristen Levine. And so I'm going to ask you each to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll jump on in. So Marci, why don't you start us off?
Hi, I'm Marci Koski, and I'm a cat behavior consultant. I have my own business, Feline Behavior Solutions, and we're growing. We just hired another behaviorist to work for us. And what we do is we work with individual families and shelters to help educate people about what their cats need to resolve and prevent behavior issues so that we can keep cats in homes and out of shelters. And so that's currently what is engulfing my entire world right now.
Yeah. And I can just tell you that Dr. Marci and her team have helped me and our cats with so many different situations. So we'll talk more about how they can find out about you at the end of the show, but I highly recommend everything that you guys do over there. And then next up, Kristen Levine, one of our dear friends.
Yes. So my name's Kristen Levine, and I have a platform called Pet Living with Kristen Levine, where I teach pet parenting advice, and I help cat moms and dads overcome challenging issues, common problems with their cats.
Oops, we lost Kristen.
Oh no.
She'll be back. Don't worry. Kristen has also been a longtime supporter of Pet Hub and everything we do here, and she'll be back there in just a minute, I'm sure. So let's go ahead and start off, Marci, and let's talk about the differences, because we're talking about lost pet prevention, and so often people focus on dogs. But it's as much. Oh, there she is. Do you want to finish up, Kristen, before we go back into what we're talking about?
Sorry, I don't know where I dropped off, but anyway, I got my start working at an animal shelter called the SPCA of Tampa Bay, where I spent 15 years educating pet owners about responsible pet care, getting pets adopted, and that's where I truly learned how huge of a problem it is when pets become lost and getting them back home. So I'm super passionate about Lost Pet Prevention Month, and happy to be here today.
Excellent. And that's perfect segue into the first question. And I was throwing it over to Marci, which is, we talk a lot about dogs, and it seems to always be the focus. But in reality, lost pet situations are more dangerous for cats. Oh, my camera's getting moved by the cat. For cats than they are for dogs. In fact, the statistics are pretty daunting. Depending on which source you look at, 5% or less of cats that go into shelters make it back home to their families. And it's a big, big issue. So there's a lot of things that don't apply to cats that we talk about a lot of times with dogs, and vice versa. So Marci, if you can kind of outline, how is lost pet prevention in general different from cats than with dogs?
I think with cats, you're really dealing with an animal that's very instinctual. We have had a very different history in terms of our evolutionary relationship with cats versus dogs. First of all, it's a lot shorter. We've really only had this relationship between cats and dogs for about 10,000 years, whereas with people and dogs, that relationship has evolved over 30 to 40,000 years, and perhaps even longer. And when it comes to the relationship between people and dogs, it's very close. It's very, people have been working with dogs for hunting partners, for protection. And so dogs are really easily trained to, hey, come over here. What are we going to do? How do I please you? What's going to make you happy? So it's, in some ways, it's a lot easier to get dogs, especially if you spot one and say, come over here. Cats, on the other hand, the relationship cats have had with people is much more hands-off. It was very opportunistic. Cats were like, hey, I see you have a rodent problem over here. You mind if I take care of that issue for you? And then people were like, oh, okay, go ahead. And so in terms of evolution, it's really only been the last 100, 200 years or so that we've developed a closer relationship with cats coming in and living in our homes, in this society, I should say. And then really the last 10 to 20 years where they're exclusively like indoor cats. We have more indoor cats now. So when a cat gets out, they're acting on instinct. They're like, what do I need to do to survive? I'm going to hide. I'm going to avoid being eaten. And they are really good at surviving. They are really good at hiding. And a lot of times that supersedes coming out for when their guardian, calls their name or shakes the treat bag. So that's like primary difference.
And Kristen, I'd love it too if you can chat a little bit about when we're thinking about lost pet prevention and the things that we normally think about with dogs, ID tag on a collar and get that leash on them and et cetera, et cetera. That's kind of out the door for most cats. So could you talk a little bit about what are those key tools for lost pet prevention that we need to be thinking about with cats?
Sure. And I would just, before I jump into that, if I could just add that also cats, it's a natural behavior for them to hide even in the home. And it might take us a longer time to realize that our cat is outside or missing. Then we would notice pretty quickly if the dog slipped out the door or the backyard, but it would take us a little bit longer to notice the cat is missing. And as we all know, when there's a missing pet, the time is of the essence. But did you want me to jump into?
Yeah, if you can, just talk about just those prevention tools that we need to be front of mind before we get into the nuances of why cats go missing and how to find them and things like that. Let's talk about those prevention tools that are key for cats.
Right. Prevention tools. I would say that, first of all, being aware that even though you have an indoor cat, that indoor cats do slip out the door. Unfortunately, I personally had that experience many, many years ago with my cat Tank, who was always indoors, and he slipped out when we had company. And I don't want to go too far into that story because it's sad, but it can happen to indoor cats. So it's very important to, first of all, recognize that your indoor cat can escape. And also that the most important form of identification is an external form of identification. And a lot of people are hesitant to put that on their indoor cats because they're indoor cats and they think, oh, well, he never goes outside. So it's not going to be a problem. Microchips obviously are a very common way to identify our cats and a great way to identify them, but I never think of a microchip as a first form of identification. I think the external ID is number one, microchip number two, and then there are other options like GPS collars, which are more common for dogs than for cats. But I will say that one of the identification external IDs that I really like for cats is Undercollar, which they are a Pet Hub licensee, I guess you would say. Is that?
Yeah, they license our technology. Yeah.
Right. And because a lot of and I know Marci can speak to this, but a lot of cat moms and dads are afraid to put collars on their cats because they climb and they get into precarious, situations sometimes, and they're worried that their cat's going to choke themselves. But obviously there are a lot of great breakaway collars that have the little elastic band that would snap if your pet were to be kind of hung up on it. And that's the other thing I like about that Undercollar solution, because it has I know we're going to talk about Pet Hub ID probably a little bit too, but it has the Pet Hub ID information as well as the stretchy collar that they can easily get out of.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, they tell you don't work with animals on live TV, right? Here we go. Kristen, you know all about that. But I will say this, that the Undercollar is super duper comfortable, and it's a great product powered by Pet Hub. I would love it if either one of you can jump on in, because I want to talk about collars a little bit more. As both of you know, Pet Hub ID tags, we really push never let your pet go around naked. And yet so many cat parents, myself included, don't have collars on their cats. Both of our our one cat was young when she came, but when I came into the picture, she was already 5-6 years old. And then Tormund, the gentleman that we all just met, he came to us as a rescue, and we joke around here, he will only wear collars for photo ops, and then he's done. And so, getting that collar to stay on the cat because they hate it so much. Talk a little bit about that and how we can hopefully help people get them collared up so that they're not running around naked and un-ID'd.
Kristen, do you want to jump in, or do you want to?
You can go ahead. You can start off on that one.
All right. So the best way to help your cat get used to anything really is to work in baby steps. And so, we call this counter conditioning and systematic desensitization. Basically, you're going to pair really good things with the collar, and then also work with your cat to gradually get up to wearing the collar if your cat does not like torment.
He's wreaking havoc.
Yeah, I can hear. So
I think they're wrestling.
I know. He's like, give me the treats. Uh-oh, it's silent. What happened?
Oh.
Well, I'll just continue.
Yeah, keep going.
So anyway, you want to work in baby steps, and then, so you can work on a process. Like, many cats are okay with you putting the collar on and snap, they're fine. Man, they may not like it. That's fine. Some cats are super, super sensitive. So you might just want to start with simply wearing like a light piece of elastic, that's very stretchy. And of course, you're going to supervise, but when you put that over their head, you're going to maybe distract them or give them their favorite treats, like churu treats or whatever, the things that Tormund was wrestling Lorien apparently for. So, and then you can maybe start, take that off after just a few seconds, and then put it back on, give more treats, leave it on for a little bit longer, take it off. So you're going to build up, and then maybe put on a very lightweight collar, an actual collar. And so you're just going to build up over time, and sessions where you give lots of treats or petting, brushing, whatever your cat likes. It doesn't have to be treats. And so you get your cat used to wearing the collar, and they associate it with good things happening. And then hopefully soon it's no big deal for your cat.
Kristen, you want to add anything to that? And I apologize for the kerfuffle. Whatever.
No problem. No, and I love that suggestion to start with, something very lightweight, piece of, elastic or yarn. When we adopted Olivia, our cat, she was about 8 years old, and her previous owner said she never wore a collar inside. And so I found a very, very thin, lightweight cat collar that had the breakaway elastic on it. And I would put it on her right before I would feed her. So kind of similar concept, to treating them. And then when she would get annoyed, I'd take it off. But I'd say after a couple of weeks, she just had no problem with it at all. I think it really helped that it's super lightweight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the key here is like, keep at it. Don't do as I do, which is like to give up and say, okay, fine. But keep at it. Keep trying to help them understand, that it's okay, it's fine, because it is so critical to get that identification externally on cats. And I'd love it. Kristen, can you talk a little bit like why? Why is it really important to get that external ID on a cat more so than a dog?
Sure. Well, because if your cat gets lost, and hopefully some, good Samaritan finds your cat, if your cat isn't wearing any form of external ID, they're faced with what to do with this cat. And they may not do anything. Or, they may take your cat to an animal shelter or to animal services, or they may call animal services or an animal control officer to come pick up your cat. Not to mention 1,000 other scenarios, right? But if your cat is wearing external identification, just about anybody that finds your cat and sees, the clearly marked identification, whether it's, an old school form of a tag that has a phone number on it, or, pet hub ID or undercollar, what have you, they can really easily either dial a number if they're so inclined, and hopefully they are, and hopefully get in touch with you quickly, or text you to, get your cat reunited with you. Or better yet, if your cat is wearing Pet Hub ID, they have multiple ways to access your cat's profile and contact you in a lot of different ways, rather than just having one phone number to call. So basically, external ID is just going to increase the chances of your cat getting home quickly or at all.
Yeah, and I'd also like to add, at least here locally, and I think this is a community problem in several communities, there are so many feral cats that a lot of times when people see feral cats, or they see cats that they're like, oh, it's just an outdoor cat, they have no idea that is actually an indoor cat that is lost. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Matt Inman, who does the oatmeal comic strip. I love Matt. He's just fantastic. He actually proposed that we start making indoor cats wear orange collars because they're kitty convicts. And if you see them outside with their orange collar, you know they've broken out of jail, kind of a thing, which I think is rather genius and a little glib. But also, you know, that idea of, as you see a collar on a cat, that cat is likely not where it's supposed to be. So that's key for us too. Marci, I'd like it if you could talk a little bit about, again, we're talking about prevention here, differences in Houdini proofing your home for a cat versus Houdini proofing your home for a dog. And you don't need to talk about the dog stuff as much as like focus on the Houdini proofing your house for those cats.
Yeah. So this can be really tricky because cats can be really, really fast and they are very flexible. Cats also can get through screens. They can't. I just saw a Facebook post where somebody showed a video. I think it was the woman who has the cat ball. And she showed a post where her cat Retro was outside and they didn't remember letting him out. And then they discovered he had ripped an entire hole in one of the screen windows. And so you really need to be careful about what access points you have that lead to the outdoors in terms of windows, doors. Screening is really important, making sure that your screens are intact. And, you know, you may not want to give your cat access to every single window, or maybe you only keep certain windows open. If you have a catio, which is a really great idea for a lot of cats, because that gives them a safe way to experience the outdoors. And so sometimes that can actually keep cats satisfied so they're not trying to get outside on their own. But you want to make sure that that catio is really well cat-proofed as well, so they can't get out of the catio. Another thing that's really important, so cats like to door dart or door dash. And you can work with your cat to train them to stop door dashing. And this is just when, you know, whenever you open the door, the cat is like, you know, wants to get outside. So you can train your cat to take cues where, you're ready to go to work. Your cat you've established a meet and greet station for your cat. And maybe that's somewhere far away from your door. So every time before you're ready to leave for work or go out of the house, you call your cat over to the meet and greet station, give them some food, maybe food in a food puzzle or something else to occupy their time. And they're doing their thing over at the meet and greet station, and then you're out the door. And then you can also train them too to recognize signs of you coming home. So they hear the garage door go up, or they hear you outside the door with your keys. And then they go, oh, I know I'm not going to get any attention or anything until I go to my meet and greet station. Mm-hmm. So they go to the meet and greet station by the time you open the door to come in the house. And then you go to the meet and greet station and say, hello, here's some treats. So there's that kind of thing. A lot of people like to take their cats out with harness and leashes, which is a fantastic way for cats to experience the outdoors. One thing I would recommend is to always pick your cat up and bring them outdoors, as opposed to letting them walk out the door themselves, because that will just encourage your cat to be like, oh, well, I can go outside if the door is open. And we don't want that. So anytime you bring your cat outside for walkies, you want to actually pick them up and bring them outside and then put them down. So those are just a few of the tips off the top of my head.
No, I love them. They're all great. And they're things that I never would have actually thought of, and they're dumb moments for me. But yeah, those are fantastic. Kristen, anything to add with that?
Yeah, I love those tips. I would just add that the summer months, there's a lot more doors opening and closing, and we're more active outdoors. So I love the meet and greet concept. That's a really great idea. And I guess making sure that everybody in the family is on board with that. That everyone's, being very consistent when you're training your cat to have a meet and greet station. And I know that's why you chose July to have Lost Pet Prevention Month, because more pets do get lost around the 4th of July holiday and, into the summer months. So the other thing I thought of was, and this is getting back to Marci's mention of the catio. I'm wondering how often it is that cats are, it's probably common, the cats are craving the outdoors when they're super bored indoors. And so another way to prevent, or just really to enrich your cat's life, not only preventing them from getting or wanting to go out as often, is to be creating a more enriched environment for them.
Mm-hmm.
A catio would be ideal, but even if you can't create a catio, maybe a window seat, giving them plenty of perches in different areas of the home to get up high and look down and watch what's going on, giving them enriching toys to play with.
You could do cat grass or put
Yeah.
feeders outside. So things that they would normally experience outside, bring them in. So
yeah.
I love all those things. And I will say that since our puppy actually came into the house, Tormund's much more occupied and is less like, let me out. He still wants to get out, but it's less so than it was before we had
more interesting things happening indoors.
Or he's just more tired because the puppy's always running around.
Okay.
Marci, I'd like it if you could chat a little bit about why are those reasons that pets go missing? Like, what are those core scenarios that are really the most common reasons they go missing in the first place?
Okay, so there's basically two types of missing cats. So there's cats that are indoors that have gotten out. And then there's also cats that are indoor and outdoor cats. So they have outdoor access already, but then they go missing. For cats that are solely indoors, sometimes they crave to go out and, they get out and they usually stay pretty close. But a lot of times what happens is that an indoor cat who gets out by accident, maybe they get startled by something and then they just know to run. They get out and then sometimes they get disoriented and so they get lost. Or they're chased by a predator and they get lost. So a lot of things can happen when an indoor cat accidentally gets outside. Somebody leaves the door open, a guest or somebody coming into the house leaves the door open and the cat's like, oh, what's going on there? And then, all of a sudden you have a missing cat. With indoor outdoor cats, it's a little bit more difficult to determine what exactly has happened to that cat. But a large percentage of indoor outdoor cats that go missing are actually trapped. And so, you want to really start talking with your neighbors when that happens, because cats will get trapped under houses, trapped in sheds. I have a friend whose cat was trapped in a neighbor's shed. The neighbor didn't know the cat was in there and then closed the door. Garages. So a lot of times that happens to indoor outdoor access cats. Another thing that happens to a lot of cats is that an indoor outdoor cat is hiding in a certain location and then succumbs to illness or disease, sickness, an injury, and they go missing because of that. And then a lower percentage of indoor outdoor access cats get taken by predators. But there is also the possibility that they get chased and then disoriented and then lost.
Yeah, the one time that Tormund did get out and was missing for several hours, he came home at 3 a.m. And we'll talk a little bit about how we got him back in when we talk about lost pet recoveries. But he had been tussling with something with brown fur and had torn claws and the whole thing. And the predator thing, oh gosh, I can't even. The predator thing is so real. Particularly those of us that live in rural cities or the suburbs where we're right up against where wildlife is out there. I mean, obviously in cities it's a little bit different, but then you have cars. But I for one am not a big fan of indoor outdoor kitties because the risk is so high on so many levels. I get it that a lot of them want to be outside. And it's one thing if you live out on the farm and you're like, hey, go out and kill all those rodents in the barn. That's a totally different thing when you have like acreage or whatever than if you're in the city or in the suburbs. So let's transition a little bit because we've talked a lot about preparation and prevention and stuff. Let's transition. Okay, what are those scenarios where cats are missing and how do you get them home? Kristen, I'd love if you could kind of talk about some of the core things that are generally true for a lot of lost cat situations and getting them home.
Sure. And are we talking about both for cats who are wearing external ID and maybe not?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just jump on in. I mean, obviously with
Yeah.
external ID, we're hoping that somebody has picked them up and called.
Sure. Well, I think that there's several things that you want to do right away. Once you notice that your cat is missing, I think most people's inclination is to start looking for them right away. Well, you can do that, but we all have smartphones now, so you can also be contacting your local shelter or animal control organization so that you can report them missing, because they may have already been brought to one of those locations depending on when your cat actually got out. Talking to neighbors, obviously, and social media. Back when I worked in the shelter environment, social media didn't exist. So I know I'm always seeing pictures in my feed a lot more often than I would like to see them about lost pets. So also I would say get a picture or multiple pictures of your cat posted on social media. If you use one of those neighborhood apps, you'd want to report it there as well. Let's see, contact veterinarians in your area. I know a lot of Good Samaritans will take, rather than, depending on the location of your animal local shelter or animal control center, it might be easier for that Good Samaritan to take your cat to a veterinarian's office. So I would also contact all the vet offices in your area.
And if I could just plug here, I mean, I know we're here for Pet Hub, but if you have an online profile, and there are a number of different companies out there that do online pet profiles, and we at Pet Hub, you can set up an online free pet profile for your pet. And through our system, one of our paid services is just a couple bucks a month. You can actually send out a missing pet alert. And it's just a couple of clicks. You've already taken the time, when you were calm and rational, to put in the pictures and the information about the cat and all these different things. And you can create a lost pet poster that you can print out. You can send a virtual lost pet poster to 50-mile radius to all the shelters and rescues and veterinarians in the area. And as well as then Pet Hub will send you a list of, hey, here's who you contact in the area. Here's their phone number, here's their address. So you automatically have that call list that you need to do. And there are other services out there that do it, but of course we do it here at Pet Hub. Great stuff. Marci, anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the most important things you can do is talk to your neighbors, but actually get permission to search their yards yourself. Because if you just tell your neighbor, my cat's missing, can you keep an eye out for it? They're going to be like, yeah, okay, sure. They are not going to check under their house for you. They're not going to check inside their shed for you. I mean, many neighbors are very nice and many neighbors would do that. But probably the average one is just going to say, okay, I'll keep an eye out. Most cats who get out, and I'm talking indoor only cats, they're usually in a radius of the exit point, like a house or two. They stay really, really close. And so the majority of cats are found either in your yard or a neighbor's yard. So get out there with a flashlight, especially at night, because then you can catch the reflection of your cat's eyes, and look under bushes, under cars, under your house, if there's like a crawl space. That is really important, so you can catch the reflection of eyes. For indoor-outdoor cats, the radius where they're found is typically 5 to 7 houses away from the exit point. Again, talk to your neighbors and ask if you can search yourself. And then you can always put out flyers. You can, I think, there's a period of 7 to 12 days where cats who are super scared and who are hiding, because remember, they just want to survive, they're going to stay hunkered down in kind of the same spot. So they're going to leave their scent there. So they're going to be more comfortable in that spot. But they are going to become hungry and thirsty. And even if you have not found your pet within the first few days, keep searching, because it's typical that between 7 and 12 days, those cats who have been hunkered down will start to come out when you put food out, or a live trap that's baited with food. So you want to get a live trap, put some food in it. And another really useful thing you can do is get a camera, like a camera trap, or, you know, a security camera, and keep eyes on that camera trap. Even just seeing your cat in the vicinity can give people a huge boost to know that their cat is alive and out there. And then it becomes just a matter of, okay, how do we trap this cat? So don't give up hope. That's really important.
Yeah,
and
don't ever give up hope.
Keep looking.
And I would, if I could add too, so for us, and this has actually worked on a couple of times where we've had missing cats, most recently with Tormund just a couple months ago, we left our garage door open just a little bit, and we put some of my old sweatshirts that I had just recently worn right at the corner there, and left it open. And he came home in the middle of the night, making a big kerfuffle, and clearly something was with him in the garage, which is a little spooky, but that has worked previously with another cat, Taz, our previous cat that we had. And the other thing that I would say, and I would love it, actually, I'm not going to put this out there as you should do this, but I'd like to know your advice, because this is something that actually was a big debate on one of our social media lost dog cat things, was the whole leaving out food and or litter for your cat, and how, particularly we're in a rural city. We're not in a big, huge urban area, and we have coyotes and cougars and bear and all sorts of raccoons and all these kind of things. And so when it was suggested to leave out food and or litter, people were like, wow. So I would love to hear about your thoughts on that.
So with litter, like, people will suggest putting out a used litter box. That's kind of a myth that is not really accurate. Cats have super sensitive sense of smell. I mean, they have 200 million scent receptors, whereas humans have only 5 million scent receptors. So their sense of smell is incredible. So they know their own smell, and they can smell, they leave a scent trail, where they travel. With food, yes, food is a consideration. And I think putting food in a live trap is kind of the way to go, because if you trap a wild animal, okay, fine, you let that wild animal go. But if you trap your cat, then your cat is in the live trap. And can it be taken out by a raccoon? It's going to be harder for that raccoon to actually. And then plus, if you're keeping an eye on that live trap, you can, oh, my cat's in there, I need to get this out.
Right.
So
that's why you keep that camera on that for sure.
The other thing about food is, if you leave it out at night, I know some people who have taken turns, put that food at the door, inside a door, like you did with your garage door, but keep an eye on it, be right there, so that if your cat comes in, you can close that door behind them. I would recommend having food inside and then actually watching that food.
Yeah. Anything to add, Kristen?
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. I live in Florida, and if you put food out, you're going to not only attract other animals, but you're going to have bugs crawling all over that food the next morning.
Yeah.
No, I love the idea of the food in the live trap, or just leaving, like you did, Lorien, leaving, the garage door open a little bit, a safe way for your cat to scoot back home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we thought it was enough that nothing else could get in, but we don't know if anything else got in, but it certainly sounded like there was something else coming in with him. Pardon my throat. When we've talked mostly about when cats go missing when they're at home, another scenario that we hear about all the time at Pet Hub is when they're traveling, either just to, to the veterinarian and back, but also, a lot more people are taking their cats on the road when they travel, road trip with Kitty. So can we talk a little bit about that? Kristen, I'd like if you could start with that, about, again, back to prevention tools for traveling with your cat to keep them safe in the first place.
Sure. Well, assuming you're traveling by automobile, you most certainly want to have a secure carrier that is, large enough and comfy enough for your cat to, stand up and turn around in, but also sturdy enough that they can't escape that carrier. And absolutely having that external identification on them, because if depending on the distance that you're traveling, you may need to stop, maybe walk your cat on that harness and leash. And it makes me nervous just to even think about when we do travel with our dogs, stopping at rest stops, I'm always a nervous wreck, like just making sure that, they don't try to, obviously they're on collars, they have collars on and they're leashed, but it just makes me nervous being in unfamiliar area with my animal. So that is extremely important to make sure that they're secure in the automobile in case there is, you have to brake quickly, or God forbid there is an accident. And so that carrier also should be secured in the back seat or even in the cargo area. And then again, like I said, just making sure that you have a secure leash and harness for those times that you have to walk the cat outdoors, and then making sure that you bring the things that they'll need or that they're familiar with for if you're spending the night in a hotel on the road, bringing their litter box and maybe their favorite bed and some toys or a blanket that they're familiar with to give them a little bit of comfort.
The only thing I would add is bringing some feel away spray, because that is a facial pheromone that adds to that familiarity, and it can have kind of a calming influence. I don't think it itself it calms, but it can keep a cat calm because things are a little bit more familiar. So spraying the carrier or even the car with feel away can help that cat be a little bit more calm. And in that sense, having a calm cat, your cat is going to be less likely to panic and try to get out of a carrier or get out of a harness, if there's an unfamiliar noise or person approaches the car, whatever the case may be. So just being able to keep your cat calm is going to be important.
Yeah, and I would also say, I mean, we actually have an employee here at the team that's on the road in the RV with her 2 dogs and I think 2 or 3 cats. I can't remember. I think it's 2 cats. And for her, she did a lot of prep ahead of time in terms of like getting the cats used to being in the RV, getting the cats used to being, doing like, hey, let's practice. And again, like the more unfamiliar they are with things, the more unnerved they're going to be. So if you are planning on doing some road tripping or hiking with your cat, Marci said before, baby steps and get them used to those things before you're like, hey, let's road trip for a month. I'm going to throw you in the carrier and let's see how this goes. That's always a recipe for disaster. So let's go. Let's assume that we are traveling, cat's gone missing. Things have changed. Like there's some of those things, right, that they're going to be hunkered down and everything like that. But looking for a cat when you're on the road is significantly different than looking for a cat in your neighborhood. So Marci, can you talk maybe a little bit more about like what's your game plan there?
Oh gosh, that can be one of the hardest things ever. So a lot of people lose pets at rest stops. And rest stops are really difficult because it's not like you can easily go back there and scout around. But, if you can have somebody return to that rest stop, put up flyers. If you can have somebody go back to that rest stop at night and look in bushes that sounds horrible. Look in bushes with a flashlight at a
but it is
necessary. But there are pet detectives out there that do search for animals specifically in these situations, and so you can hire people to look for your pet, but then also alerting local rescues if there's anybody in the area. That might be a good place to start, because if somebody finds a pet at a rest stop, there might be a likelihood that they're going to take it to a local animal shelter.
Mm-hmm. Kristen, anything to add there?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I can think of to add is offering a reward, and maybe posting on social and tagging the location where you're at, and indicating that there is a reward for anyone who finds your cat or leads you to information that helps you find your cat. Yeah, and I don't know how you're going to make posters when you're on the road, but I guess if you could go to a local UPS store or Office Depot or whatever, putting up those reward signs as well. I think that's going to motivate people. Maybe.
And I actually say pre-make them. Pre-make those posters.
Yeah.
If you are going on the road, and obviously going to the veterinarian, that's a different scenario, and you don't plan on that, carrying lost pet posters when you go to the vet's a little morbid. But you're going on a road trip, vacation with your cat or dog, having those things pre-printed and ready to go if you need to, and make them generic enough that you can add in some information, put some lines in there so you can add in details and things like that, but it's already got the picture, it's already got your number, that kind of thing. And I'd say again, I mean, to plug online profile services like what we do here at Pet Hub, you can send out a missing pet alert, you put in the last known location, we do our radius of 50 miles from that last seen location. You can also update it. So if there's sightings of your pet, oh my gosh, my pet's 10 miles down. I mean, I'm not for, you said something, Marci, about cats being locked away in a shed. We actually had a cat that jumped in the back of a FedEx truck and ended up being like 5 counties away just in a couple of hours. And the call came in, I was like, no, my pet is not there. That's like 180 miles away. No, the cat had been in the back of a FedEx truck. So, you know, you never know where that's going to happen. But prevention. And then one last thing I'd like to put out there is it's not just about an external ID and a pet license or rabies tag, hopefully, or even the microchip. There are other forms of identification, particularly when you're on the road, that can be really, really critical. So we, for example, we have a product called the Ready Kit. And it's got a tag, a big, huge luggage-looking tag that goes on the outside of your pet's crate. Because imagine if you are in an accident and the animal's crate is maybe dislodged in some way, or you're unavailable because of something. You've got that crate card that says who the emergency contact's on, and it should be somebody more than just you. At Pet Hub, we encourage you to have a safety circle of at least 3 other people that can be contacted in case you're not available. And then the Ready Kit also has an emergency card that goes in your wallet, but also is on your keychain. Again, for those situations where you are not able to be there for that cat or that dog, but then first responders are able to get somebody else to help that animal, for sure. And any other thoughts that you guys want to share? Because we need to wrap up here with the time we've got.
Go ahead, Kristen.
Go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna, I say this a lot when I talk about lost pet prevention or external ID. When you go on a trip, when you fly somewhere, you don't put your luggage on that belt without identification. So why wouldn't you put external identification on your cat? I know we're talking about 2 completely different scenarios, but it's sort of the same concept. You value what's in your luggage. You want to see it again if it gets lost. And we all love our cats dearly. And I think you just have to realize that even indoor cats and outdoor cats do get lost sometimes. And so if you love them as much as I'm sure you do, then make sure they're wearing a Pet Hub, ideally external ID or some form of external ID in addition to the microchip.
I guess I would say keep looking and don't give up. I mean, there are stories of people finding their cats, you know, even years later, but it's not totally uncommon for cats to be found even 50 days, 75 days later, and really look around where that cat was lost in the immediate vicinity. I had a cat several years ago. His name was Jesse, and I was on vacation, and our housemate had been going in and out of the house, and he just left one of the doors open, and Jesse got out midway through my vacation. So the rest of the vacation, of course, I was like, I'm a complete wreck. And as soon as I got home, I put my bags down. I went next door. There's a parking lot next door, and Jesse was underneath one of the cars. So, I mean, it was such a relief to find him, but he was super close. Cats stick around, generally speaking, but there are the odd situations where, you know, you're traveling or
or there's a FedEx truck or whatever. Those are one-off stuff.
And they travel. So
yeah. And 1 in 3 pets will go missing in their lifetime. And 10 million pets go missing every single year. So, you know, I know that we all believe that, oh, our cat would never, you know, run away from me. Oh, my dog will never leave my side, until they do. And you just don't know what the situation is. I mean, right now on the West Coast, we've got firestorms left and right, and it's so unexpected. You can bet your bottom dollar that a cat, when they're in a situation, they smell smoke, they're getting out. They're going to be in survival mode. You know, we've got hurricanes or hurricane season. Yay, Kristen, get gearing up for that. She lives down there in Tampa. You know, again, those are situations where the cat is going to be looking for survival mode. And so don't make the assumption that just because it hasn't ever happened to you and none of your cats before have ever gone missing, that they're not going to, because the statistics say 1 in 3 will and 10 million a year will. So please take it seriously. Now, let's end on a little bit of a happier note. I would love for people to be able to know where to find you, because both of you do so much more than talk about lost cats. And so, Kristen, let's start with you. Tell people where they can find you.
Sure. You can find my website at kristenlevine.com, and I'm on social media at Kristen Levine Pet Living with Kristen Levine on Facebook and Instagram.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Marci?
You can go to my website at felinebehaviorsolutions.com, and you can send me an email at hello@felinebehaviorsolutions.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and yeah, you can find me there at Feline Behavior Solutions. So that's
and both of you have wonderful social media presences that have a lot of really great content. I follow you both, and I learned a lot from both of you. So thank you so much. Sorry, my co-star had to be booted. Claus came out and he was not having it, that I didn't want to give him any more treats. So I was like, okay, you're fired. So that is when the dog makes it.
At least he made an appearance.
Hey, he made an appearance. It was an effort, right? Well, thank you for joining us. Until next time, please keep those pets safe.
Thank you.